Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, an original shark from Shark Tank. Ultimate Bundles connects you with the best teachers online.
The very first thing you should do, kind of the step as a whole, is to analyze what you're spending now. We thought we were pretty frugal. Like, we didn't have a lot of expensive things. We had a lot of debt, but we didn't have like a fancy car or anything like that. And we always tried to shop on sale and that kind of stuff. And we just kind of checked our bank account and we saw what was going in and out. And we're like, well, there's money in there, so it's got to be okay. We never realized how much that added up until I actually sat down and printed out my bank statements and started highlighting. The first thing I would recommend that you do if you are completely overwhelmed is to print out your last 3 to 6 months of bank statements. And 3 months is probably a pretty good average. If your income is really inconsistent, 6 months might be a better way to tell exactly how much you're spending each month. But you take those bank statements, and then I recommend getting 3 different color highlighters. And the first thing you're going to go through, let's say you just use pink, and you're going to go through and highlight everything that you could possibly do without, things that you don't require absolutely to live every month. And take that highlighter and go through, and I call these pause spending. So I have an acronym that I'm going to go through, which is VIP. So we're going to look at vital expenses, important expenses, and pause or miscellaneous things, because we're going to pause these eventually once we get to the budgeting part. But go through that and highlight everything that you think you could probably pause for at least a few months, or even indefinitely. This is like subscriptions or things like that. That'll help you get more margin in your budget. And then add those up. Add up how much you've been spending each month. Then take your next color highlighter and go through and highlight things that are important. So this could be different for everyone's family. Like if your kids take a medication that's expensive, like that's going to be an important expense, or possibly even a vital expense in your budget, but another family might not have that expense in their budget. So it's kind of different for everyone. But this would be things like your security system, maybe pest control, your TV, things that are important to you, like you like to have in your budget, but that maybe we can reduce a little bit or negotiate. That's important. You need that, but we might not need to be spending as much as we are right now on it. But maybe we're going to go back and revisit that and see if there's something we could temporarily reduce, especially if you're struggling to make ends meet. With the next category, which is your vital expenses. So your absolute vital things, like for you to feel safe and secure in your home, would be that you can pay your rent or mortgage, you can pay for electricity and water, you can put gas in your car to get to work and possibly pay your car payment so that you can get to work, and food. Food is definitely a place where you can visit that to reduce, and we can talk about that in a minute. But those are the 4 things. You need to be able to at least pay those. So when you're going through your budget, if you had to stop everything else, the pause spending and the important spending, at least you could feed your family and put a roof over their head. If you can't pay your rent or mortgage or your electricity, then we're not going to worry about the credit card company that's calling us trying to get a payment, because we want to make sure our family is safe and taken care of. And so after you've analyzed your spending, now we can work on cutting our expenses. It is not going to be overnight. It might be something that takes a few months to reduce certain categories, but then you're going to work on budgeting better. So now you hopefully have margin, you have some extra room in your budget. And if you don't, there's only really like 2 main ways to get extra room in your budget, and it's reducing your expenses and increasing your income. And what I found was once we reduced our expenses to like the bare minimum possible that we could. I mean, we did like I said, we moved and we sold our cars and we did everything we could to reduce our budget. And once we did that, I could breathe again. I felt excited because I was like, wow, look what we did. We actually did this. We reduced our expenses. And I felt more motivated to find ways to make more money. And I wasn't so stressed all the time. Like I felt just more energized. And so that was when we started doing more side hustles and things like that. We did DoorDash. We got jobs at Amazon warehouse. And then I worked on my blog like crazy to try to turn it into a source of income. And so just things like that, I feel couldn't have happened until we cut our expenses. And so once you've found some margin in your expenses, you're going to want to work on sticking to your budget and budgeting better. And for that, having a monthly planning meeting is so important because that is going to help you eliminate those things that randomly come up. A lack of planning or being new to budgeting gives you that feeling that like, oh, things just always come up. Like all these emergencies come up, everything keeps coming up. I can never get ahead. And that's how we felt when we first started. We're like, I just don't understand how to manage these miscellaneous things that keep coming up. And that's when even halfway through the previous month, so like if you're halfway through August, you should already start thinking about September, like what's coming up in September. Fall is coming up, school close, like all those things. You can start planning for them now, and that way they don't feel like a surprise whenever they get here and make you feel stressed and want to give up on your budget. And then creating what's called a zero-based budget, and that's when you give every single dollar that's coming in a name. So down to any extra money you have left over, you tell it where it's going to go so it doesn't just get accidentally spent. So you're like, this extra $500 is going to debt, or this extra $500 is going to save for our Disney vacation, or whatever your financial goal is. If you're debt free, it's the same thing for saving for a house, for a down payment, anything like that. You have to intentionally make a plan. And then once you started budgeting better, you can finally create a debt payoff plan or a savings plan if that's your goal. And your budget can predict your timeline. So you don't have to not know, when will I be out of debt? This is going to take forever. I don't know if I'll ever be there. So let's say you have a $10,000 student loan that's left and you find $500 extra in your budget. You know that that's going to take you 20 months to pay it off if you stick to your budget. And that'll either motivate you, or you'll say, oh, this stinks. Like I've got to find more money somehow. And you can say, how can I make an extra $500 a month? Or how can I cut an extra $500 a month out of my budget? And then that'll cut your time in half. So now all of a sudden you're paying off your student loan in only 10 months. And that sounds really exciting because it's less than a year. And before, you just thought you were going to have that student loan, for the rest of your life. Once you have the plan, that's when you can get really motivated. And then you start to see more ways that you can cut or things you can sell to make your debt payoff go faster. And then that can feed into your mindset, because after you've done all this stuff, it is really hard. Like, it's been 4 years since we started our debt-free journey, and we're not done. We still have a big business loan left to pay off. And the reason that we kept going was because we were getting little wins along the way, and it was really motivating and really exciting to see the progress. And then also using that like rock bottom feeling, like I think back all the time to how I felt, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we've paid off so much debt. And I used to feel so hopeless and like this would just never happen. And like we were going to be bankrupt and lose our business and never buy a home and all this stuff. And like, just every time I think about just quitting or giving up or, taking shortcuts or something like that, I remember that feeling. And that's kind of like my why. Like, I never want to feel like that. I don't want my kids to have to feel like that. And that really keeps you motivated. So it's important to also find that why, and that'll keep you motivated when it gets really hard. And yeah, so that's kind of like my 4-step plan, I guess, to budget when you're overwhelmed. You want to analyze your spending with the VIP method, cut your expenses once you've analyzed them, and then make a plan to budget better, which includes planning meetings and using a zero-based method so that you're assigning every dollar, and then actually create a plan, a debt payoff plan, so you can see it and stay motivated.